The Bleacher Report app is your destination for sports. Right now, the NBA's heating up, March Madness is here, and MLB is almost back. Every day there's a new headline, a new highlight, a new moment you've got to see for yourself. That's why I stay locked in with the Bleacher Report app. For me, it's about staying connected to my sports. I can follow the teams I care about, get real-time scores, breaking news, and highlights all in one place. Download the Bleacher Report app today so you never miss a moment.
Imagine standing in front of your company's executive board, looking the CEO dead in the eye, and proudly declaring that you just wasted 3 months and $1 million on an idea that completely, spectacularly failed.
Oh, man. In most traditional corporate environments, you would be packing up your desk by lunch.
Right. Security would be walking you out.
Absolutely. It'd be career suicide.
But today, we are actually looking at data showing why the most innovative, fast-moving companies on Earth, well, they wouldn't fire you for that presentation.
No, they really wouldn't.
They would actually give you a promotion.
Which sounds crazy, but it's true.
It does. Welcome to the Deep Dive. You are here because you're intellectually curious, you want a shortcut to being well-informed, and, well, you want to understand the actual mechanics behind high-performing teams.
And we have some incredible data to get through today.
Yeah, we have a massive stack of research on the desk today, centered entirely around this fascinating study by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover. It's called Inclusive Leadership and Team Innovation.
Such a good paper.
And our core mission today is to figure out how the most successful organizations don't just, survive screw-ups, but actually use failure as a deliberate, engineered catalyst for success.
Yeah, and we're going to dig into the actual mechanics of how this works. And I think it is crucial to establish up front that we aren't just philosophizing about corporate culture here.
Right, this isn't just a TED Talk about feelings.
Exactly. The insights here are deeply grounded in what academics call team regulation theory.
Okay, team regulation theory.
Yeah, and to strip away the jargon, that just means looking at how teams collectively decide to allocate their brain power and their emotional energy when things get difficult.
Like when a project goes off the rails.
Right. And the researchers didn't just take a snapshot here. They analyzed 400 employees across 77 different teams.
Wow, 77 teams.
Yeah, and using a 3-wave design,
Right.
which basically means they track these specific teams over a significant period of time to see how changing the leadership style actually rewired the way the team solved problems in real time.
So they could actually see the cause and effect as it happened.
Exactly. This is empirical evidence mapping leadership behaviors directly to cognitive output.
Okay, let's unpack this, because the core problem this research highlights is a massive disconnect. The modern workforce has fundamentally changed, but the way we manage people is totally stuck in the 1980s.
Oh, completely. For a very long time, the dominant leadership model was just command and control.
The classic boss.
Right. It was strictly hierarchical. It relied heavily on top-down influence, a singular visionary leader barking orders, and extreme performance pressure.
Do it because I said so or else.
Exactly. But the demographic of the workforce has shifted completely underneath that structure. Today, the dominant group consists of new generation employees, specifically those born after 1980.
The millennials and Gen Z.
Yep. And the research by Zhang and colleagues demonstrates that this generation evaluates work through a completely different lens.
How so?
Well, they prioritize intrinsic motivation, personal development, and a feeling that their work actually matters. And they value that far more than they prioritize extrinsic rewards like a simple bonus or deferring to hierarchical authority just because someone has a fancy title.
So the old carrot and stick routine is basically breaking down.
It's broken. You can't just wave a year-end bonus at a team or say, do this because I'm the boss, and expect them to suddenly generate these groundbreaking creative solutions to complex problems.
Right. I mean, they might comply, but they aren't going to innovate.
Exactly. Compliance and innovation are two entirely different psychological states. Innovation requires a very specific psychological environment.
Okay, so what does that environment look like?
Well, if we look at the framework developed by Shore and colleagues, they argue that for a team to truly innovate, leadership has to satisfy two seemingly contradictory human needs at the exact same time.
Okay, contradictory needs. What are they?
First, there is the need for belongingness. This is the fundamental desire to feel accepted, safe, and valued as a member of the group.
Makes sense. We're social creatures.
Right. But second, there is the need for uniqueness.
Uniqueness.
Yeah, this is the desire to feel that you're distinct, individual attributes and eccentricities are not just tolerated by the team, but actively recognized and appreciated.
Oh, that's really interesting. It's like being in a choir.
A choir, I like that, yeah.
Yeah, think about it. When you are singing in a choir, you need that deep, profound safety of blending in perfectly with the group. You want to harmonize.
Right, you don't want to stick out for the wrong reasons.
Exactly. You want the psychological comfort of knowing you belong to this larger, unified sound. That is belongingness. But simultaneously, you desperately want the conductor to look at you, point their baton, and give you a distinct solo.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
You want your specific voice to be heard and valued over the crowd. That is uniqueness.
And traditional top-down leadership usually forces people to choose one or the other. Well, it either demands total conformity for the sake of the group, which kills the solo and stifles unique ideas, or it creates this cutthroat, forced ranking environment of individual competition.
Which completely destroys the harmony of the choir and prevents collaboration.
Exactly. You get either robots or gladiators, neither of which actually innovate well.
So if traditional hierarchical leadership can't provide both the harmony and the solo, what kind of leadership actually can? I mean, we know the old model is broken, so what replaces it?
The researchers point to inclusive leadership as the solution here.
Inclusive leadership.
Yeah, and drawing on the work of Carmelli and Hollander, the study defines inclusive leadership not as a top-down directive, but as a bottom-up relational approach.
Okay, what does that actually look like on a Tuesday afternoon in the office?
It is characterized by 3 core behaviors. First, openness. And that means a genuine, demonstrated willingness to consider diverse viewpoints, even when they totally contradict the leader's own ideas.
Hard for an ego to swallow, but okay.
Very hard. Second is availability. And this doesn't mean having a fake open-door policy in theory. It means actually making time on your calendar and being psychologically present for a consultation.
Not checking your phone while someone is pitching an idea.
Exactly. And third, accessibility. This means actively removing the artificial status barriers, the corporate red tape, that prevent authentic interaction between the leader and the junior team members.
So they basically drop the corporate armor
Yeah.
and actually interact with their team as human beings.
Yes. And what's fascinating here is the critical mechanism that connects this specific, accessible type of leadership to actual measurable innovation.
Okay, what's the bridge?
The bridge between the two is a concept called team learning from failure.
Team learning from failure. Okay, I want to pause here.
Sure.
Because I hear this phrase thrown around a lot in Silicon Valley, and I have to push back a little bit.
Go for it.
That sounds great in a controlled lab setting, right?
Yep.
But when a major client is waiting and $1 million is on the line, a CEO or a board of directors isn't going to care if a failure was a quote-unquote learning opportunity.
They want results.
Exactly. They care that the product is delayed and the money is gone. If a leader is just creating an environment where we hug everyone when they fail, hand out participation trophies, and say, good job, you tried, aren't we just lowering the bar?
That's the classic fear, yeah.
How does this actually survive contact with the reality of capitalism? This just sounds like a recipe for accepting sloppy work.
And the research anticipates that exact critique. We have to separate what the literature calls preventable failures from intelligent failures.
Okay, preventable versus intelligent.
Right. Preventable failures are exactly what you were worried about: sloppiness, inattention to detail, or just deviating from known, established best practices.
Like if an accountant forgets to carry the one and ruins a financial model.
Exactly. That is a preventable failure. No one in this study is suggesting we celebrate or accept that.
Good, because I'd fire that accountant.
Right. But intelligent failures are entirely different. They are the result of thoughtfully designed experiments in highly uncertain, unexplored domains where the answers literally do not exist yet. Inclusive leadership doesn't mean lowering the standards for basic execution. It means focusing all of the team's analytical energy on those intelligent failures so the company can map out the unknown territory faster than its competitors.
So it's the difference between failing because you didn't bother to check your math versus failing because you were trying to invent a brand new type of equation to solve a problem no one has ever solved before.
Exactly. And let's ground this in a specific case study from the research. It involves a major pharmaceutical research organization.
Okay, big stakes there.
Massive. And they were facing a massive crisis of efficiency. Their research teams were so terrified of looking incompetent to upper management that they were systematically concealing or minimizing their experimental failures.
Which is basic human self-preservation.
Totally natural.
Nobody wants to be the person who stands up in a crowded boardroom and admits they just burned through 6 months of budget on a total dead end.
But the organizational cost of that self-preservation was staggering. Because they were hiding these failures, the broader company was completely blocked from learning.
Oh, because nobody else knew what didn't work.
Right. So different research units in different buildings were inadvertently repeating the exact same failed experiments.
Oh, no.
Yes, leading to a massive, compounding waste of time and resources. So the company had to intervene radically. They created a quarterly intelligent failure forum.
An intelligent failure forum.
Yeah. Teams were mandated to present their most spectacular failed experiments, analyze the contributing factors, and extract the learnings for the rest of the company.
Oh my gosh. I can only imagine the absolute terror in the room during that first forum. You have these brilliant scientists who have spent their entire lives trying to be the smartest person in the room, suddenly forced to stand at a podium and explain how they got it wrong.
The tension was palpable. And the forums only worked because senior leadership went first.
Oh, they took the first bullet.
They had to. The executives stood up at that podium and modeled vulnerability. They walked the entire company through their own massive career failures, the hypotheses they got wrong and the millions they lost.
Wow.
And once the junior researchers saw that the executives weren't struck by lightning for admitting a mistake, the psychological relief just washed over the organization.
They proved it was actually safe.
Exactly.
What did the data show after they did this? Did it work?
It was incredible. Within 2 years, they tracked a 340% increase in openly shared failure analyses.
340%.
Because teams were no longer quietly going down previously identified dead-end pathways, duplicative mistakes across the company dropped by 52%.
That's huge savings.
Massive. And on their internal engagement surveys, they saw a 41% improvement in perceptions of psychological safety.
So we've established that psychological safety works. But let's look at the human toll here for a second.
Okay.
Because analyzing your own mistakes, even the intelligent ones, is emotionally exhausting.
It's grueling.
It takes a massive amount of mental energy to sit in a room, swallow your pride, and dissect exactly how and why your brilliant idea fell apart. If it's that painful, what keeps a team doing it week after week without just burning out and retreating back to safe, boring work?
And that introduces the vital multiplier in this study, something researchers Dobro and Tostikaras identify as team career calling.
Team career calling.
Right. The researchers found that inclusive leadership, as powerful as it is, doesn't work in a vacuum. It operates most powerfully when there is a strong collective sense that the work is deeply meaningful and central to the team members' own identities.
So they actually have to care about the outcome.
Exactly. That collective intrinsic motivation is team career calling. When teams believe their work actually matters to the world, they are vastly more receptive to the developmental and sometimes painful opportunities that inclusive leadership provides.
They'll endure the pain for the mission.
They are willing to endure the discomfort of dissecting a failure because they care so deeply about the ultimate goal.
It's like, it's the difference between fixing a flat tire on a rental car versus fixing a flat tire on an ambulance you are driving to save a life.
Oh, that's perfect.
Right. If it's a rental car, you're going to do the bare minimum to get it back to the lot. But if it's the ambulance, you are going to obsess over the mechanics, you are going to study why the tire blew out, and you are going to make sure it never happens again because the stakes actually matter to you.
And the data bears that out in the field. The research highlights a powerful example involving a social impact consulting firm.
Okay.
This firm exclusively hired highly motivated, purpose-driven people. But after a few years, the day-to-day grind of endless client demands, data entry, and project management was just burning them out.
Which happens to everyone.
Right. They were losing their connection to their calling.
Because they were just staring at rows on a spreadsheet all day instead of seeing the actual human beings they were supposedly helping. The abstract mission just got buried under the administrative reality.
Precisely. So, to fix this, the firm instituted quarterly impact reflection sessions.
Okay, what are those?
They systematically forced the teams to put down the spreadsheets, pause, and map their daily granular data work directly to the real human impact it was having on vulnerable communities. Communities several steps removed from their direct corporate clients.
Like showing them the end result of the data.
Exactly. They brought in stories, video testimonies, and hard evidence showing how a specific risk analysis report actually kept a community clinic funded.
Oh, they reconnected the spreadsheet to the human heartbeat.
Beautifully said. And the metrics reflect the psychological shift. Perceived meaningfulness of the work across the firm increased by 37%.
Wow.
Turnover dropped by 28%, particularly among their most experienced, highest performers who were previously at high risk of leaving.
That's retention gold.
And most importantly for our topic today, they saw a noticeable spike in innovation. Because team members remembered why they were doing the work, they were suddenly willing to invest their discretionary leftover energy into developing novel approaches.
Think about your own team for a second. Think about your weekly meetings. Do you just run through project updates, timeline checks, and status reports? Or do you ever actually pause, even for 5 minutes, to talk about why the work matters?
Most teams don't.
Because what this data is telling us is that the why isn't just a fluffy HR concept to make people feel warm and fuzzy. It is the literal required fuel for the painful process of innovation.
It is the boundary condition. It is the deciding factor that determines whether inclusive leadership will actually translate into team learning or just result in a polite team that never takes any risks.
But here's where it gets really interesting. Let's look at the macro picture for a minute. We've talked about the individual leader being inclusive and accessible.
Yeah.
We've talked about the team being deeply motivated by a sense of calling. But what happens when you have an amazing inclusive manager and a highly motivated team, but the broader company they work inside still operates like a traditional cutthroat zero-tolerance machine?
And this is the systemic reality check of the entire study. The research is very clear about the danger of misalignment here.
Yeah, what happens?
You can have brilliant micro-level inclusive leadership, but it will get absolutely crushed by macro-level toxic systems.
Crushed.
Completely. If a company preaches inclusion and psychological safety on its website, but its actual financial structures punish failed experiments through compensation cuts, smaller bonuses, or blocked promotions, well, employees aren't stupid.
No, they'll see right through it.
They will follow the money. They will stop taking risks entirely. Systems over smiles, always.
It's like you can water a plant all you want. You can give it sunlight. But if you're planting it in solid concrete, if the company's financial structure and promotion metrics actively penalize risk, it's never going to take root.
It's impossible.
You can train a manager to be a great listener, but you have to change the concrete. You have to change the soil.
And that requires structural, evidence-based interventions. To embed inclusive leadership so it actually survives, organizations have to put their money where their mouth is.
How do they do that?
One of the most effective ways the study highlights is explicitly funding failure.
Wait, literally setting aside a budget for projects that the finance department knows are going to fail.
Yes. Leading organizations typically allocate 10 to 20% of their innovation budgets to exploratory projects with an understood mathematically expected failure rate.
That's wild.
The research highlights a manufacturing firm that took this concept to the extreme. They established a specific innovation fund and explicitly told their engineering teams that they expected a 40 to 50% failure rate for projects funded from this specific pool.
That is a radical psychological shift. Imagine pitching that to a traditional CFO, telling an engineering team, hey, we expect half of what you build with this money to break.
It completely reframes the concept of risk. If you don't fail occasionally, it proves you aren't trying anything new.
Right.
And to support this, they also modified their performance scorecards to include learning metrics. So teams were evaluated and compensated on the sheer volume of experiments they conducted and the insights they shared with other departments.
Not just the final polished product.
Exactly. And the result of changing those metrics was a 210% increase in novel process experimentation.
210%.
Yeah. And over 3 years, they developed 14 major market-shifting innovations, up from just 3 in the previous 3-year period.
All because they changed the soil. They made it structurally, financially safe to fail.
Beyond budgets, you have to build systematic accountability for the leaders themselves, because it is notoriously difficult for leaders to self-assess their own inclusivity.
Oh, sure. Everyone thinks they're the good guy.
Most leaders think they are great listeners. But the study points to a massive financial services firm that realized innovative ideas from certain demographic groups were being consistently overlooked or talked over in meetings.
How do they fix that?
To fix the concrete, They implemented rigorous 360-degree assessments measuring very specific, inclusive behaviors.
Think about your last performance review for a second. Were you graded on how well you actively solicited dissenting opinions from your junior staff?
Probably not.
Because if your bonus isn't tied to it, human nature says you are going to prioritize whatever actually pays the bills.
And the financial firm knew that, so they tied the results of those specific inclusivity assessments directly to promotions and compensation. If you were not demonstrating inclusive leadership, if you were shutting down intelligent failures or talking over people, it actively impacted your wallet and your career trajectory.
That is how a company proves they actually care about the culture. They hit you in the wallet.
And within 18 months of tying the behavior to compensation, that firm saw a 68% increase in the serious consideration of ideas from previously overlooked demographics.
Wow.
And the actual viable innovation contributions from those specific team members increased by 47%. The systemic change forced the behavioral change.
So what does this all mean for you? If we pull all these threads together from Dr. Westover's research, the deep dive takeaway is clear.
Very clear.
To unlock the potential of the modern purpose-driven workforce, you cannot rely on the old command and control playbook.
It just doesn't work anymore.
You need leaders who can balance the harmony of the choir and the distinctness of the solo, providing both belongingness and uniqueness. You need a culture that strips the shame away from intelligent failure and treats it as a vital, expensive data point rather than a career-ending disaster.
Absolutely.
You need to constantly reconnect your team to the shared, meaningful purpose of their work to give them the energy to keep going. And crucially, you have to build organizational structures, budgets, and promotion criteria that actually reward this behavior instead of secretly punishing it.
And if we pull back and look at the broader implications, the paper discusses the constant tension organizations face between the exploitation of old, reliable knowledge doing what you already know works and the exploration of the new.
Right, playing it safe versus venturing out.
If you only exploit, you eventually become obsolete. But if you only explore, you go bankrupt. But if intelligent failure is the only true, proven pathway to genuine exploration and innovation, it raises a really fascinating question about how we view talent.
Okay, what is it?
Why do we still evaluate job candidates based on an unbroken illusion of perfection? What if we started evaluating leaders not by their traditional resume of uninterrupted successes, but by asking them to submit a resume of intelligent failures?
Oh, wow. A resume of failures.
Think about it. What would your failure resume look like? What bold, highly uncertain experiments did you try that completely collapsed? And most importantly, what would that resume prove you've actually learned about the unknown edges of your industry?
That is a phenomenal question. Because if you don't have a failure resume, it might just mean you've never actually pushed the boundaries of what's possible.
You've just been playing it safe.
It might mean you've spent your entire career staring at the jagged white line on the X-ray, terrified to step out into the muddy, unpredictable waters where real innovation actually happens.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Take these insights, think about what is on your own failure resume, and bring this perspective into your next team meeting. We'll catch you next time.
Hey, it's Parker Posey. How did I get here? I love improvisation when it comes to acting, but when it comes to a real-life plan, I stick to a script. Cue the music.
Invest in your story. Get the growth potential of midcaps with MDY from State Street. Getting there starts here. Before investing, consider the fund's investment objectives, risks, charges, and expenses. Visit statestreet.com/IM for a prospectus containing this and other information. Read it carefully. MDY is subject to risks similar to those of stocks. All ETFs are subject to risk, including possible loss of principal. ALPS Distributors Inc. Distributor.